You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Coming up, we will be visited by Sam from the Scott Holman Pawdcast as we recap the college basketball season and Houston's run to the Elite Eight in the NCAA Tournament. We'll talk to Sam coming up in just a few moments about the Cougs' run in the Big Dance. Meanwhile, Memphis was the only other AAC team in the tournament as they went in as a 9 seed. They scored a first-round win over the 8 seed Boise State. The Tigers, though, would fall in the second round to the West top seed Gonzaga. Memphis had held a 12-point lead after the half before the Zags rallied to win. Lots of coaching changes in men's basketball. Rob Lanier is named the head man at SMU. Arrives with more than 30 years as a collegiate coach, including 7 seasons as a head coach. His teams have made 12 NCAA tournaments and 19 total postseason bids on all the staffs he's been on. That includes 5 conference titles, 3 regular season championships, and 2 tournament crowns, and 5 more trips to the league tournament final. His 3 seasons as the head of Georgia State, the Panthers went 53-30, winning the Sun Belt Tournament in 2022 and advancing to the NCAA Tournament. They also made the Sun Belt Tournament final in 21, and he led GSU to a victory over Georgia Tech, the program's first ever win over an ACC opponent. And they also claimed the 2019-20 2K Empire Classic Riverside Regional. And in addition to being the head man at Georgia State, he's been and also at Siena, he's been the associate head coach or assistant at Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Virginia, Rutgers, and his alma mater, St. Bonaventure. Tulsa introduced Eric Conkle as the school's 31st head coach on March 22nd. He comes to Tulsa following 7 seasons at Louisiana Tech. Overall record of 153-75. He won 46 games in his first 2 seasons, the most for any previous Louisiana Tech head coach, and his 153 career victories is the 3rd highest total win in school history. His teams produced 6 seasons with 20-plus wins and were among the top 3 in Conference USA standings 5 of his 7 years. Michael Schwartz became the 24th head coach at East Carolina men's basketball back on March 16th. He is considered one of the most versatile and well-rounded assistant coaches in college basketball. Schwartz has spent the last 7 seasons on staff at the University of Tennessee, including 4 as the associate head coach. In fall of 2019, he earned feature placement on the Athletics list of nation's top 25 up-and-coming college basketball coaches. Turning to the women's tournament, South Florida, they went into the Big Dance as a 9 seed. They ended up losing in the first round to the 8 seed Miami. UCF went in as a 7 seed and claimed their first ever tournament win by beating the 10 seed, the Florida Gators. It was also the night's first ever victory over the Gators. UCF would lose a hard-fought second-round game against former conference foe and the number 2 seed UConn, losing that game by 5 points. And of course, with success comes the Power 5 knocking. Georgia has swooped in and taken Coach Abe from UCF and her entire staff. So UCF will be retooling with a brand new staff for women's college basketball. All right, when we come back, we'll talk to Sam Rossifas of the Scott Holman Pawdcast. We will recap the Cougars' fine season, which ended in the Elite Eight at the NCAA Tournament. That's coming up right after this.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
All right, time to put a capper on the college basketball season, at least as far as the AAC is concerned, as the last team standing, the Houston Cougars, got all the way to the Elite Eight. But the season unfortunately ended then at the hands of Villanova. And joining us now, Sam from the Scott Holman Pawdcast to discuss the Cougars season and their tournament run. Sam, always a pleasure.
Always great to talk, Jeff.
Yeah, so let's talk about this team through the year. You know, we spoke a couple of times, and you know, we talked about the adversity the team had to overcome, losing two key players early on. They had to kind of reconfigure things a little bit, but as a Kelvin Sampson team does, they play defense, they rebound, and they end up having a terrific season, winning the conference and making another nice deep run into the NCAA tournament. So if you had to capsulize the season, how would you do so?
If I could use a two-word explanation or two-word description of it, I would say, in the best way possible, fever dream. Because even when we got to around Christmas time and realized that, hey, this season's going to have to finish without Tremont Mark and Marcus Sasser, it was looking pretty grim. I didn't think that this team didn't have the possibility of making the field of 68, but you had no choice but from my position to kind of soberly assess this team and say, you know, this is still going to be a good team. This is still a team that could win the AAC like this team ended up doing, but losing two guards that would have been, if, you know, we talked in the preseason, the first two guards I would have mentioned to you, it caps what you think the team could do. And I couldn't have been more wrong there. The Cougars, you know, I think obviously I'm not saying they were better for not having Marcus and Tremont, but they really developed a new identity. I think it really helped that this was already, even when Sasser and Mark were healthy, Kelvin Sampson's strongest front court. You were able to kind of have some of that scoring load get taken by guys like Fabian White and Josh Carlton, who I think certainly had a higher offensive capability than probably any of the big men groups of Kelvin Sampson's previous teams, and guys like Kyler Edwards and Tajay Moore and Jamal Shed, all of whom had shown prior to the injuries that they were going to be serious contributors to this team, but showed themselves to be capable of filling in a lot of the holes left by those previous guys, which I think is an incredible testament to all of those guys. I think the really incredible thing about this team is how many one-year guys made 3 or 4 years worth of impact on this group. Tajay Moore coming in with his sixth year with all the injury problems he had in his previous run at Cal State Bakersfield. Josh Carlton, who by his last year at UConn had pretty much become an afterthought to what Dan Hurley was doing there, ends up having a first-team all-conference kind of season as one of the top 4 or 5 players in the conference per KenPom, and Kyler Edwards being able to take on a lot of the volume shooting that Marcus Sasser might have been doing otherwise, really in certain games carried the Cougars when no one else was really able to make a shot, showed an ability to just completely take over a game with his shooting. Edwards did. And all the guys I just mentioned, and Jamal Shed, who was with the team last year, not saying he didn't play a role last year, but was probably one of the least experienced guys who came from last year's team and showed himself not only capable of being a starter, but capable of being an all-conference guy, was one of the most prolific assist guys in the country last year, and showed himself, I think, like a lot of great Cougar guards to the recent past, a guy who relished the tough opponent match of a guy who could be an elite on-ball defender. When asked, I think I had high hopes for Jamal Shead. I think my co-host, who couldn't be with us tonight, had high hopes for Jamal Shead. But I think what Jamal Shead ended up doing in the last 3-ish months of the season, I think surpassed even our wildest hopes. So just I think, sum it up, a lot of guys really playing beyond what even our most optimistic hopes, believed they could do this year.
Let me take it back to February 9th. You guys lost the game to SMU, then followed up with a loss to Memphis, and then briefly lost first place for just a quick spell. But then they got it back in gear. Well, can you speak to the importance of how quickly, because the team's going to face some adversity during the season, especially in conference. The fact that they were able to react so quickly and get things back on track.
Yeah, I think some of that is to the experience. A lot of the guys just mentioned, Carlton, Moore, and Edwards. These are all guys who are in at least their 4th year of playing college ball. These are guys who have gone through the grind of a few college seasons. So I think those guys never got too high. They never got too low, as much as, it's kind of a shock. That was the losses you mentioned. That was the first time in 5 years that U of H had lost back-to-back games, which is pretty absurd in retrospect, that you could go almost 60 months without doing something as I think typical as losing back-to-back games. But, I think it would have been easier maybe for guys who had been in this program a while and had gotten used to just, rarely losing conference games to panic. I think the outside perspective that you got from those guys, I think it's why you didn't see this team really appear rudderless after two tough losses. I think really just showed the veteran ability of this team to shake off. It was a really tough loss to Memphis. That was the first home loss the Cougars had suffered in any kind since 2019. And just a game where, the SMU game, the Cougars held a lead for a good chunk of it and then just kind of ran out of steam on the road, faced a SMU team that was a really, really good offensive team, especially on their home court. But, the Memphis game, they got physically beaten. They got physically beaten on their home court. And I think the fact that you had a bunch of guys who have, been through the battles of college basketball, have gone through, many seasons in the sport, I think is why you didn't see the team maybe come apart. Like you sometimes see teams have a real strong start to conference play and then, finish out with a 500 record. And I think you wouldn't blame this team if, they really just, because it was really at that point in the year, you saw the lack of depth get laid bare. You saw the really compact portions of the schedule hit this team hard. And without Sasser and Mark, this was a team, with an 8-man rotation. And I think, not to blame that because everyone deals with a compact schedule. Everyone to some degree deals with injuries, but I think you saw that hit the Cougars all at once. And I think that you didn't see it become anything more than a 2-game losing streak is a testament to just the mental toughness and experience that this group of guys, even down a couple of key guys, had this year.
Yeah, of course, it was really compacted at the end of the season, which, certainly played a factor in the season finale against Memphis. I'm sure they had tired legs by that stretch in a game that they lost, but they would get their revenge in the conference tournament as they rolled through that and pretty well handled the Tigers in that one. Let's talk a little bit about the NCAA tournament. So, first round matchup against UAB. UAB was, probably one of those 12 seeds. The 12-5 game is always one of those upset special kind of games. And UAB was certainly a team that couldn't be taken lightly, but managed a 14-point win there.
Yeah, and I think to something you said also a moment ago, I think what made me start to feel really optimistic before the tournament was how decisive that game against Memphis was, because regardless of my feelings on those specific players, on Penny Hardaway, from February on, that was a really good basketball team. That was one of the 15 or 20 best teams in the country from February to the end of the season. And that the Cougars didn't just get the win in the conference tournament championship, that they beat Memphis pretty decisively and in a way that you really didn't see anyone, including Gonzaga in the round of 32, beat the Tigers this year. So that gave me some, good feelings. And I thought the Cougars matched up reasonably well with quite a good UAB team, a team that won 27 games, won Conference USA. I think coming into that specific game was top 50 in KenPom, but I did feel good about the Cougar guards, Kyler Edwards and Jamal Shead in particular, matching up with Jordan Walker. I mean, Jordan Walker, UAB's awesome, high-scoring guard, came into the tournament as one of the top scorers in the country, though you hadn't really seen this year a smaller guard take apart the Cougars. The Cougars were able to handle pretty well most opponents that didn't bring in a preponderance of length. Your opponents besides, Memphis and Alabama, basically, you saw the Cougars, I guess SMU as well with Kendrick Davis starting the game in Dallas. And you saw the Cougars really shut down Walker like no one's done this year. And I think it was the kind of performance that put Jamal Shead, I think, in the company of guys like Corey Davis and Galen Robinson that came before him, guys who really got big matchups and big games and just locked down the opposing guard. And you also saw Kyler Edwards' ability to just take over games scoring-wise. It felt like in that first half against UAB, everything he threw up was going in the basket. It was one of those games where UAB, I think they shot 61% in the first half and they were down 9. And you kind of think to yourself, man, how do you feel if you're in UAB's locker room? You've just shot 61% against a very good defensive team, and you're still trailing by a good amount. And the Cougars were able to finish them off in the last 20 minutes once UAB and the Cougs cooled down a bit.
Second round was a victory over Illinois. So, a Big Ten team, and, the Big Ten kind of took it on the chin in the tournament this year, and Houston certainly delivering a blow there.
Yeah, and you really kind of saw in that one, you really saw Illinois' lack of a, second option outside of Kofi Coburn. I mean, you saw in that game, you saw like Kofi Coburn was a multi-time All-American. There were times where he got the ball in the low block and it was just like, all right, I just really hope he doesn't get the and one here. He had a pass to the basket, and you're just, even with the Cougars having Josh Carlton and Juwan Roberts, two, I think, good defensive big men, two guys who aren't going to lose too many physical matchups. And you really saw, the Cougars, I think, use that monster double team that Sampson does really well in the low post effectively. And really, at times in that game, really just daring anyone not named Kofi Coburn to beat you. And, Coburn did get his at times. He had a really good game at the charity stripe, I think, much to my chagrin, because, thinking to myself during this game, this guy's a 55, 60% free throw shooter. How come he can't miss? How come he looks like a confident guy at the line? But I thought the Cougars did a really good job basically forcing anyone not named Kofi Coburn to get involved. And, once the shot stopped falling, and once the Cougars were able to get a little bit of offense going themselves, you saw the Cougars, and I don't say it's lightly, make the Big Ten champion tap out, which I think is just a testament to how good this group was the last 12 months of the season.
And then in the Sweet 16, they faced the number 1 seed Arizona, and the Wildcats were a trendy pick for the Final Four and even the championship game. But Houston certainly had no issues there.
And I'll give a mea culpa on here. I will throw myself on my sword a little bit, because when Dustin and I went on another show to talk about, where do we think this team's postseason ceiling was, we both thought, yeah, this is a second weekend team, but I think the prospect of the Arizona Wildcats concerned us, just because, I think I mentioned this a moment ago, that was a team that had a lot of length. That was a team that could throw, Ben Mathurin, who's going to be a top 5 or so pick, I think, in this spring or summer's NBA draft. Christian Coloco, a really skilled big man, just more athleticism than the Cougars had seen this year from anyone, save for maybe Memphis or Alabama, and honestly might have been able to throw more length at the Cougars than Memphis and Alabama could. But you also saw, you saw how good this team can be when Kyler Edwards is hitting his shots. He had another good game against Arizona. You saw how good Jamal Shead could be at times, because the Cougars got out to a big lead in this one. Arizona was ice cold, and Arizona never got to their, season average offensive level in this one. The Cougars held them to 60 points. I think maybe the best defensive performance that we've seen from the Cougars this year. But you knew Arizona was going to pick it up a bit. You knew they were going to shoot 20-something% for the entire game. And I thought Jamal Shead, when the Cougars really needed a bucket, when Arizona cut it to a basket, when Arizona looked like they could potentially finish the Cougars off and take over this game, it felt like every time they were at that point, Jamal Shead had an answer. And I would say Jamal Shead did something similar down the stretch against Illinois, when Illinois, I think, made it kind of interesting in the second half of the round of 32 games. So you saw how clutch Jamal Shead and Kyler Edwards could be. You saw how good the Cougars team defense could be at times. And just the Cougars dealing with in that one, Tajay Moore, who had been really critical against Illinois. I think he played fewer minutes than he did in any game this year since December because of foul trouble that he got into against the Wildcats. And You saw the Cougars do a really good job on Mathurin. You saw, the Cougars really forced them to find someone other than Christian Coloco to get involved, really took advantage of Kirk Friesa, just not looking like anything like he'd looked during the season. I thought just probably the team's most complete effort of the entire season against, I think they came into that game as the Ken Pom number 2 or number 3 offensive team in the country. So, it was really that combination of just clutch baskets from Edwards and Shed and incredible team defense that the team had flashed at times, but I think certainly the most complete 40 minutes you saw this year.
Then, of course, the season comes to an end in the Elite Eight round against the 2 seed Villanova game where, you look at the Wildcats and they were, a team that could certainly compete on the boards. They were probably the only team I saw all season that could really compete with the 50-50 balls with Houston. And then, unfortunately, the drought from 3-point land, 1 for 20. It's gonna be hard to win shooting 5% from out there.
Yeah, I don't think any of the opponents that you'd seen prior to UAB, Arizona, or Illinois, I think you would have had a hard time winning against any of those opponents going 1 for 20 from deep. I think it's an incredible testament to what the Cougars did in all other facets that this one wasn't a complete rout like I think all the other Elite Eight games were. I mean, this was one Villanova led from start to finish. This is one Villanova, I'll make it clear, was absolutely the best team on the court on Saturday. They were the team deserving of going out of the Final Four, but this was a game the Cougars had their chances in. Jay Wright called a timeout with 5 minutes left in this game, and Villanova clinging on to a 2-point lead. And that was kind of, if you're the Cougars, that was the inflection point. That was the time in the game where you could have taken it over potentially. And instead of taking it over, the Cougars went on a 4-minute scoring drought after that. By the time they scored again, Villanova was holding on to a 2-possession lead. And it's very hard to win a close game late against a team like Villanova, who also did not miss once at the free throw line. I mean, you knew coming in, I think they were the number 1 free throw shooting team in the country. You don't want to get into a free throw shooting contest against an opponent like Villanova. And I think you saw something else. Something I kind of noticed coming in is that really they were a veteran team in the way that Illinois and Arizona weren't. I think UAB was a veteran team in the same way, but I don't know if the Blazers had certainly not the same level of tournament experience, but maybe not the same level of talent that you were going to see from Villanova. They weren't the deepest team, but you were going like the Cougars against a team full of 3rd, 4th, and 5th year guys who, were no stranger to a college basketball season, were certainly no stranger to the tournament. And I think you saw that resolve. You saw that tournament experience. I mean, this isn't going to go down as one of Colin Gillespie's best games for Villanova, but I thought I was telling Colin Gillespie's 1 made basket in this game was, also a testament to, Jamal Shed and Connor Edwards. They did a good job, I think, keeping some of Villanova's regulars from taking over this game. But the 1 basket he made was to put them up 2 possessions after that Jay Wright timeout there. So, the great ones like Gillespie find a way to get involved at the really critical moments of the game. But, I think a lot to be proud of from a Cougar standpoint that you were able to shoot 1 of 20 from deep, a objectively horrible margin, and still be able to play close to this opponent. I think just a testament to how good this group is defensively and how many good things the Cougars can do even when the shots aren't going in. I thought this was funny. I looked this up. Shout out to Ken Pomeroy in this one. Before Saturday, the Cougars were actually 3-0 in games they shot under 20% from deep this year, including, I want to say the game in Orlando against UCF was one of those very games. That this team this year had shown an ability at times just to go completely cold from deep and still find a way to win games. But obviously, you get this far in the tournament, you get the kind of team that's going to make an Elite Eight run, you'll find yourself maybe getting exposed a bit more.
Yeah. And, it always just seemed like every time Houston was making a run, Villanova would have an answer, which, the good teams do in those situations. It felt
a lot like what the Cougars say. It felt like being on the receiving end of what the Cougars have been able to do this year, quite honestly. And I was like, so this is what it feels like to go against this team. Kind of.
Yeah. Interesting. I heard Jay Wright on Mad Dog Russo's show today, and he was talking about, preparing for Houston. He said his assistants went out to watch the Arizona game, but he decided to, he was going to watch film of their game. He said, boy, when I got there, when we got to play Houston, their guards are bigger than what they're listed.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh my gosh, we got to be prepared for their size." I found that to be a pretty interesting comment.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. It was two opponents that clearly had a lot of respect for each other. I mean, you hate losing, period, but I will say, like, losing to Villanova feels a bit different than losing to SMU or Memphis, just in terms of kind of the respect you have for what an opponent is doing, and just, understanding this is a team that has gone deep in the postseason year in, year out for a pretty good reason, and certainly would say it starts with Jay Wright.
Yeah. And you know what? And he's a guy who, I look at and see, he's starting to build into that next Coach K territory where, he's going to be a threat for the Final Four every year. The way he's going. So that's for sure. So do you root for Villanova now in the Final Four?
It's a tough decision. I would say, yeah, I would. I'm not like going wild for the Wildcats here. No pun intended here, completely unintentional. But I don't know if my other options are Coach K. I don't have any specific beef with UNC, but I don't know. I'm disinclined to root for Duke, UNC, or Kansas, just kind of as long-standing blue bloods of the sport. And I kind of like Jay Wright and Villanova. I don't have a worse opinion of Villanova now than I did before the Elite Eight game. So yeah, sure, we'll toss our hats in for the Wildcats here at the Scott Holman Podcast.
Yeah, well, there you go. So a run to the Elite Eight, and you've put out a lot of numbers. You guys have put out a lot of numbers on Twitter on what this program has done the last few years. Share some of those with me. Off the top of your head, if you can.
Oh yeah, I think this one blew my mind because I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, Kelvin Sampson, since he has gotten to the University of Houston, has as many NCAA tournament wins. I like to pick on the specific team, but I'm not picking on them specifically because, let's just say Tulane had 10 wins. I'd be eventually Tulane here, but Kelvin Sampson, since he has arrived at Houston, has as many NCAA tournament wins as SMU does, period, since that program came into existence. It's crazy. I think sometimes your tendency as a fan or a fan base is to get down after the season's over and think, if only we had, won this game and gone here. It's kind of a fan's prerogative to, wonder what if, but I want to point out to them there are programs in the AAC right now that haven't ever seen their team go to the Elite Eight, that maybe have like one Sweet 16 run in their history. And I mean, before Kelvin Sampson got here, the last time U of H had won an NCAA tournament game, period, was Phi Slamma Jamma, was actually the last season of Phi Slamma Jamma, 1984, if memory serves. So that was a 34-year drought, I believe, in between the last Phi Slamma Jamma win. I believe that would have been the game before we lost to Georgetown. It's not Virginia. I want to say Virginia was the year before. Anyway, but between then and the win over San Diego State in 2018, the Cougars hadn't won a single game. That's how much, Kelvin Sampson has changed things here, to go from a 30-something year drought to becoming the kind of team that you could almost pencil in the second weekend or later. It's absolutely crazy. I think Kelvin Sampson's specific era of U of H basketball would be tied for sixth most wins in the postseason among all AAC programs. And that's just from 2018 to present. Kelvin Sampson didn't go to the NCAA tournament his first 3 years here. That's just the last 5 seasons, and that's just an incredible 5-season run. And I think you can be pretty optimistic as a Cougar fan. Obviously this season was incredible, and you don't want to just assume the second weekend is your birthright, but you return a lot of this year's group and don't want to take any future questions, but bring in 3 top 100 recruits. It's easy to be optimistic in the present, and it's easy to be optimistic in the long term because of what Kelvin Sampson's built here.
Yeah, that's it is remarkable. The numbers are outstanding. And then you said something that caught my attention. He did not go to the tournament his first 3 years. That's guys don't get that long anymore to get the ship righted,
Yeah, I know Indiana tarnished some of that, but I remember my co-host and I texted in 2014 when it was becoming clear that Kelvin Sampson was going to be the guy that got hired to replace James Dickey. And it was less of a, did we think Kelvin Sampson was credible as a hire? It was just okay, if this guy doesn't succeed here, do we start asking questions about the viability of men's basketball here? Because he came in with such an incredible CV. I think for me, I was pretty sold from day one for him, but the fact that, because he inherited, I would say 4 to 5 Division I players. It wasn't the greatest program when he got in. And then Daniel House transfers to Texas A&M. Tayshaun Thomas transfers to Oklahoma. Basically the only 2 guys you would have conceivably really built around. So I think for me that he got this team to top 3 in the AAC and in the NIT in his second and third years. For me, that was kind of the, oh man, this guy might have something here, because the fan support hadn't increased at the time. We were still playing in a, historic, but God love it, very decrepit Hofheinz Pavilion at that point, that he was able to instantly get those results for me. That was as good of a sign as any that, I don't think I would have truly dreamed big enough to, expect several second weekends, a Final Four run. I don't know if I would have gone that far. I don't know if my time as a Cougar basketball fan would have allowed me to dream that big prior to this, but you kind of knew he was on to something here, how quick he got the results, how quick he was able to get buy-in from the money people to get a new practice facility, to get eventually a new arena. And just obviously since then, he's really just been cooking with gas.
Yeah, and even more impressive, I think, too, is the commitment, because he decided to lock in and stay at Houston. He didn't treat it like a stepping stone.
Yeah, and I think it was the 2019 tournament that was really, I think after that Sweet 16 run that year and the 30-plus wins, it was kind of, we figured at that point either he was going to, go to another job and give it his one last shot at what I think Arkansas was the team du jour that a lot of people at the time, before they hired Musselman, thought was going to poach him. And I really felt like after that point, I was like, okay, if he stays after this, I think he's pretty much locked in here. And I think some of it's age too. I don't think he wants to coach until he keels over, though I think he has a few good years still left in him. But, I think the fact that the university had shown, one, like you were saying, a willingness to commit to the infrastructure, the game, having games at the Fertitta Center, and, what that does to the ceiling of your program. But, also the willingness to, let him hire his son, Kellen, who has been just incredible as, I would say the Cougars' chief recruiter, chief talent identifier, and Lauren Sampson, his daughter, who handles a lot of the off-court logistics for the team. And I think he also really enjoyed living here from his time as an assistant with the Rockets. I think in the 2018 or 2019 offseason, he was at least briefly a name for the Magic's open job that I think went to Steve Clifford at the time. So I think he really likes it. I really do think the university has rewarded him for his commitment. But, I think it's been really cool for someone who's seen a lot of coaches do good things and then go somewhere else. It's been really cool to see someone build a monster like Kelvin Sampson has here and actually show a willingness to stick around. Obviously the age benefits us. The previous NCAA issues in Indiana won't deny it, benefits us. But it's been really incredible, and I think both parties have been rewarded for the loyalty. Yeah,
and you said it best too. I mean, if guys will take the time to stay, they can make programs that are quote unquote not Power 5 or Power Conference, if you will, can still make them something and make them something really great. So.
Yep.
We'd definitely love to see more of that. So that's for sure. So Sam, as always, we appreciate your time, and please, shameless plugs for your endeavors.
Shameless plug time. We are on all podcast apps, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, at the Scott and Holman Pawdcast. That's PAWD cast, because if we love anything, we love puns. We are on Facebook and Twitter, probably most active on Twitter at SHPAWD cast. We talk all things Cougars. If there's Cougar sports going on, you can be assured that Dustin and I are talking about it.
Outstanding. Sam, as always, we appreciate the time. Thank you.
Great talking with you, Jeff, as always.
And we'll be right back with final news and notes right after this on the AAC Report.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, Everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company, and they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up the menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
All right, let's look at some Player of the Week honors. First, we will turn to baseball. Roberto Pena of South Florida is the Player of the Week. 500 batting average for the last week with 6 runs scored, 2 doubles and 2 home runs, and 8 runs driven in as the Bulls went 4-0 for the week. And he recorded a hit in all 4 games and scored 4 runs in a win over Florida Gulf Coast. The Pitcher of the Week, Orion Kirkering of South Florida. He got the win in a 9-4 victory over Niagara by only allowing 2 hits and 1 earned run while striking out 8 and walking none in a career-high 7 innings of work. The Player of the Week in softball, Jocelyn Alonso of East Carolina batted .545 with a home run, 8 RBIs, a .571 on-base percentage, and slugged over 1,000 in a 2-2 week for the Pirates. Hit her first home run as a Pirate. Drove in 4 runs in a 3-for-3 showing to open conference play at Memphis on March 25th. Added a pair of hits, including a triple 3 RBI and 2 runs to level the series against the Tigers on the 26th. And she also had an RBI, sacrifice fly, and a run scored in the rubber match to take that Memphis series in the 3rd game. The Pitcher of the Week, Gianna Mancha of UCF, won the top Pitcher of the Week plaudits for the 2nd straight week, a dominant showing in the circle for the 23rd ranked Knights in a conference sweep at South Florida. Had a 2-0 record with an ERA of 1, 4 walks issued, 19 strikeouts over 2 complete games. The sweep by the Knights over the Bulls was the first in program history, and South Florida batters batted just .065 against Mancha during the series. Surrendered 2 runs on 2 hits and struck out 9 in a 5-2 win to open the series, and then capped the sweep with a 1-hit shutout, walking 3 with 10 strikeouts. Turning to track and field, the men's track athlete of the week is Quillville Jordan of Houston. The field athlete of the week is Christian Sampe, also of the Cougars. The women's track athlete of the week is Ellie Leather of Cincinnati, and the field athlete of the week, Adrienne Adams of UCF. And that's going to conclude this week's show, and we'll be going on monthly mode as we enjoy the late spring and summer, and then we'll ramp up weekly come August once we start ramping up for the football season. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88, and you can follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.